a few more minutes and then we're gonna start. Thank you for joining us so far. There's a lot of people from all around the world. So happy about that. Yeah, so just a few minutes and then we're gonna start. Okay, I think we should start. It's 11:05, so we waited enough, and people then we're gonna join us on the way. Also because like for the first 5 minutes, I'm gonna like introduce the webinar, so no one is losing anything. So welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us today. So this is the first Trust in Play webinar, and it's an experiment. And we're really excited of having like our guest today with us, and also like people from all over the world. This is like really global, truly a global event. We have people from Georgia. I saw Katuna connected from Rustavi, so I'm really happy about that in Georgia. And then we have also like people I see in Europe and also here in the States. There are like MICA students are here with me in the main space, and they're like enjoying this webinar together with us. So this is the first Trust in Play webinar. What is Trust in Play? Trust in Play is a project that is like led by the Goethe Institute of Athens, and is a co-founded EU project from Creative Europe. And basically, the idea is like to create the first European school of urban game design. And we're experimenting with this. So we're not a school yet. And basically also like we're going to experiment in the next month different ways to learn together about this topic of urban games. This webinar, for example, like the community that probably a lot of you are already in, is the first experiment. And the idea is like to share as much as we can between peers and like learn from each other experience. And this webinar is another experiment. So we got every like 2 weeks, probably the next webinar will be like in 2 or 3 weeks. We're going like to have a webinar where we discuss deeply on topics that are interesting for the community. Trust in Play is divided in 3 branches. The first branch is based on Amsterdam and is led by the Amsterdam University of Applied Science. The second branch is based on Athens and is led by Innovathens and Technopolis. And the third branch is this one, which is the Nomad branch, and is led by Edge Riders. And I'm Matteo Uguzzoni, and I'm the coordinator of this branch. And together with me today, there is Natalia, which is the community manager of Edge Riders, but also of Trust in Play. So Natalia, you can say hi.
Hi, everyone.
Present yourself.
Yes, so I'm Natalia, and I'm the community manager for this project. So I'll be the one who will be asking you all kinds of strange, deep, annoying questions, and try to make it talk about things you like and things that drive you and things you do in your life. And right now I'm sitting in the middle of Ljubljana, waiting for Biennale of Design, for which I will be doing some artworks this year. And I'm super excited for this webinar.
Cool, thank you. And so Thank you, Natalia. And Natalia is like the one that probably you already have some interaction on the community, because like she's our community manager. And just a few home rules. I saw in the comments that some of you asked, hey, can you hear me, etc. The idea is that like basically we're gonna like share the audio with the guests, and then so probably all of you will be mute, but you can write on the chat if you have a question, if you have doubt, if you have something that you want to go deep. And Natalia will check that mostly, and so we can discuss your question in the second part of the webinar. In the first part, we're gonna like ask a question to our guest, and so then we can also like go deep on questions that maybe they are raised from this first part of the conversation, etc. Then this is like the beginning of a conversation about money and sustainability. So we are recording this webinar, and we're gonna put the webinar on the community. So basically, after that, we're gonna discuss and like we can continue the conversation online. Other things that I just wanted to share with you today is that we have an open call. We are looking for the trainee for the school, and this open call will end the 31st of May. So if you're interested on apply now, consider to apply. On the community, you can find all the information. And basically, you can apply in the different branches. If you are based on Amsterdam, or you can work with a team that is based on Amsterdam, apply for the Amsterdam branch. If you are based in Athens and you are able to work with a team that is based in Athens, apply for the Athens one. If you're not based neither in Amsterdam or in Athens, but you want to attend like the school and you want to be part of that, apply for the Nomad branch, which is the branch that the Riders is leading, that I'm part of, that Natalia is part of, that is like is working mostly online. And what is gonna happen with this selected trainee? The first thing is that basically in October, they will join us in Athens for a week, the International Week Training Week. So we're gonna be all together in Athens, and we're gonna share and have workshop together. And then after that, every team will create a urban games in their own city. And this game will be like in the spring 2020. And so they're gonna be like a small budget, and then we're gonna have like a team of mentors helping you. And so you're gonna basically design this game in the spring of 2020. So finally, I want to thank Mica Game Lab, where I am. They are hosting, like they are physically hosting us here. Mica is the Maryland Institute College of Art. It's an art school that is based on Baltimore, Maryland in the US. They are also partner of the Nomad branch. So they're gonna be like 3 students or alumni that will join the school in Athens, and they will develop also the game in the spring 2020. So thank you, Mica, for having us here. And I think that's it. 7 minutes, and that's it. I think I explained everything. So again, in the community, you can find a lot of materials and all the information that you need to apply. So let's start. I'm gonna like present you our guest today. I'm gonna start from the far east. So I think so. We have Michał Grzelewski, which is from Department Gear, which is a urban games company, originally from Łódź, Poland, but now is also like active in Russia, where Michał is, right, in St. Petersburg. Hello, Michał.
Hello, Matteo. Hello. Do you hear me? Can you show somehow that you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you perfectly. Let's move to Central Europe, I will say, and I'm gonna say hello to Sebastian. Sebastian Quack is one of the founders of the network Invisible Playground, and is also the artistic director of Trust in Play. Hello, Sebastian.
Hi. I'm doing it together with Maria Zaridaki, so I'm co-director.
Co-director, you're right.
Yeah,
Maria cannot join us today. And also let's go to an island that used to be Europe. I don't know what are the news. today, but like in England we have Will Drew, and Will is known as artist as Venice Dolphin, and he's also the head of experience of Eden City, and also like is associate on Kone. Hi, Will.
Hello. Hello.
Cool. So I'm gonna try to be the director, so put you like in the main spot, but I'm also experimenting with this. So why we decided to basically start it with money and sustainability, because myself, it's 10 years that I'm doing like urban games and this kind of stuff, and in order to sustain myself, and it was like very intense as an experience, and I think that that's part of like the good and the bad of like being artists that are trying to create something that is like public like that. And so I think like this is a question that is always there, and everybody's always asking themselves, how can you make these things and pay yourself? So it's like a giant elephant in the room when you start talking about like urban games and this kind of stuff. For me, like it's important like to share the techniques that people that are like few years already on the field discovered, and they are using to sustain themselves. So we have prepared like a set of questions, and maybe we're gonna start like with our guest like talking about that. Maybe we can like follow again the sun area. So start with Michał, and then Sebastian, and then William. And so the first question that I'm going to ask you is basically, what is your name? You already said that. And how do you define your practice? And how did you started with this? So Michał, if you want to start with that.
Yes, cool. So once again, hello to everyone. I'm Michał Grzelewski. I'm now speaking to you from Łódź, which is my hometown, because I came here just for a week to be more in the topic of urban gaming. So yes, who am I? I define myself as urban game designer and organizer. I think rather in Poland and in Russia, people would say not designer, but organizer, the man who is putting things together and not only giving the creative layer of urban games. So that's it. And yes, I was also thinking about, am I an artist as an urban game designer or not? This is the question that I'm constantly asking myself, and I think I'm more rather kind of craftsman. It's making craft out of urban games, and maybe there is not so much art in this I'm doing, but maybe I'm just strict. For me, I don't know. And I started my practice with this in 2008 when I was a student here in my hometown in Łódź, and the very first project that we did, if we are speaking in terms of money, we received a grant from the program. I don't know how it's called. It's YAV's Europe's for YAV, something like this. Mm-hmm. It's a very basic European program for young people that you don't actually have to have any organization. You can just have a group of the people who want to do something. So we received this grant for the first activities, and one of this was urban gaming. So yes, I think if you are young and ready to do some things, maybe there's a point you can start. Okay, I think it's enough for me for now.
Okay, thanks, Michał. That's interesting. One thing that I think is gonna keep coming, which is the thing that you said about organizing. So basically saying that you are like basically a producer of urban games. I think that this is a skill that every one of us has to learn in order like to make this kind of activity. So yeah, maybe probably this is something that is gonna come up also with Sebastian. Yeah, Sebastian.
Yeah, okay. Sure. Hi. Yeah, good question. So I do define myself as an artist. So I usually say artist, game designer, curator, depending on where I am. So I started doing games and urban games around the same time, actually, I think around 2008, 2009, and started running festivals in Berlin and in other places. Also later in Poland, one edition of Play Public Festival. And I work a lot in, I would say, in the cultural sector. So I make games usually together with cultural organizations, so like theaters or like museums. Now with an orchestra, the last project, for example. So this kind of partnership between existing organizations and a team of freelancers working in this is kind of central, I think, to my practice. And that goes from organizing events and exhibitions that showcase other people's work, but also sometimes I do collaborative projects, mostly where like I'm an artist and I come up with what to do. Yeah. And I mean, showing stuff is, I guess, later, right? This is like the short intro.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Will, let me put you, oh, wait a minute. I did everything wrong.
Thank you.
Sorry. I just, yeah, you need to put, yeah, thanks. Sorry. I'm going to pin you now. Okay, cool.
Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Okay, cool. Hi, I am Will. So I suppose like there are different sort of aspects of my work. I think as with a lot of us. I would generally describe myself as a writer and a games designer. Like Sebastian, it's kind of like there's a certain flexibility in terms of who I'm talking to. So like there's a sort of a spectrum of kind of like writer, games designer, narrative designer, dramaturg, kind of, which all kind of, and then actually a lot of the, and that's more like how I define myself. But then there's also like what needs to be done to actually make the work happen and to maintain the things as well. So I started, I guess a bit later, like sort of 2013 sort of time. That was sort of when I started making live games. I describe what I like, again, a kind of spectrum of kind of interactive theatre to live games, and some of those live games taking place outdoors. I started doing that around that time, and I got into involved with a company called Hidden City a few years later, having kind of made a few of my own games like that, and coming from a theatre background. And I have since then continued to work for Hidden City for the last 5 years or so. And is that me, the hissy sound?
Yeah.
I continue to work for Hidden City for the last 5 years or so. I'm head of experience there, and what that basically means is running the day-to-day operations of a company that is making real-world games, as we define them, but essentially it's the same as urban games because they're not happening in the countryside. They have to happen in cities, and usually what we found through experience is they have to happen in fairly dense cities like London, New York, that sort of stuff. That works better, and as well as the audience, which we'll get onto later. Because it's an automated game in City. I can go into more detail about how it works later on. But because it's automated and it's in the real world, there's like not necessarily daily, but sort of certainly almost daily maintenance that needs doing, where something will, out of a number of different trails that we have, will go wrong. Because it's in the real world, because in a living, breathing city. So part of what I do day to day when I'm working for them is to manage that and to basically troubleshoot the problems. So it's like, yeah, it's like resolving bugs essentially. Yeah, but in the real world. And then and then I also make my own work as Venice is a Dolphin, which is me. That tends to be more interactive theatre. So that's sort of I'd say like my urban games, real world games work is mostly now confined to Hidden City. Although I did recently work with Fire Hazard on a real world game as well as a freelancer. So my Venice is a Dolphin work tends to be interactive theatre now.
Okay, thank you for the introduction. Okay, so the next question is like this. So name one project that was eye-opening for you. So basically in terms of business. So we have like probably we have like 10 years of experience, and you, William, like is already also like 6 years. So like in this time, in order like to survive and thrive, we probably created a lot of projects. So what was one project that was like illuminating for you in terms of business, like in the bad like the bad side or the good side, something that you say, oh my God, now I understand something that was wrong, or oh, now I got something that's good, I'm gonna continue with that. Yeah, Michał, you can start, and then I'm gonna like basically unmute all of you so you can also like comment on each other's. Okay, cool.
Okay.
Yeah, you are on. Yeah.
I have the most difficult task here because I am the first in each question, but okay.
Okay, we're gonna change that because you're not in St. Petersburg, but I think you're also like
you're still east of me.
It's still the yeah. So like yeah, no way.
Okay. No, this is not a problem. I'm just trying to tell some jokes. Okay, so what I'm going to tell you, I'm going to tell you about two projects that we worked on. One was done in Poland, and one was done, well, maybe done is not the word that I should use here, but it was happening in St. Petersburg. So yes, as for the project in Poland, we did quite a large urban game. It was lasting for a week, for actually more than a week. It was 9 days from weekend to weekend. And how we got this job? We won a city tender. It was a tender for event for the city. And it was not the first event like this in this city. It was another year of this. And what we found out was that they were expecting something quite simple, quite ordinary, but meeting their formal requirements that they have, as it works in tenders. So you have to print, I don't know, 2,000 posters and 1,000 something else, but it doesn't really matter if your game is good and if people are happy or not. And we, what we tried to do, we tried to deliver good quality. We tried to make really fun game with very not complicated, but with very creative story and so on, and with some characters that were dressed in the costumes that we made, and so on and so on. So what we did here, we delivered more than we expected, way more. And of course, people were very happy. They, as a city council, were quite happy because because people were happy, so they were happy as well. But they knew that if we did it this year, next year they will have to do something like this or something better. So that was the thing that they didn't like much. And also we made an estimation of costs for this project. We calculated everything, and of course we made a big. We estimated a huge amount of this cost as our reserve, I could say, as something that we should keep for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
But we found out that it was too low amount, and during production of this event, it came out that there are many things that we should pay for, and everyone in those city needed that we will have to pay for this, but we didn't knew this. Like, city expected that we will speak with the owner of some castle and give them some money and make some part of event there. And we found out this when we were making this game. So those are things that we didn't expect. And so what we learned here? We learned here that of course it's good to make huge events, huge games that are making people happy. But maybe it's not so good to tell about everything from the beginning, promise too much, and yes, maybe sometimes you have to lower your ambitions and keep the money that they gave you. So that's the first project, and the second project, just shortly, can I tell about second project?
Go, yes.
Okay,
Sure.
I would like to share an image of this, if I will be able to do this. Just give me a second.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you see something?
Yes.
Maybe not much, but yeah, I will speak about it. So what you see here is the board game that we did on an exhibition in St. Petersburg last year. And it was kind of a board game about building a city. And as you see here, there is an industrial robot which is putting some buildings, where boxes actually, on this board. And in the background of this picture, you can see the people which are behind some kind of fence.
Yeah.
Because they couldn't enter the board because it was too dangerous. So as you see, the setup of this game was quite complicated.
Yeah.
And the technical side of this game was very complicated because we had to develop the software that were running this game and connect it with the software of these robots. There is one robot on the image, but there is other one in the other side of the board. So everything was so complicated that finally, as it somehow happens, we didn't manage to realize this game the way we wanted. So. In terms of content, in terms of the story, the game mechanics, like the game rules, everything was very well prepared. But in the terms of tech, of these robots and projectors and board and so on, it was too complicated, and we didn't manage to get this done. So the things that we learned here, and actually I knew this before, but it was the time that I realized it one more time, is that content of the game, mechanics of the game, rules of the game are very important, and if you don't have to use some complicated, sophisticated technical devices, maybe you can avoid it and do it just in a simple way and enjoy the game as it is, and not enjoy those complicated devices.
Yeah. Michał, one question. Do you have like technical skill in your team, or like someone mouse?
In this project, we were collaborating with some technical team that were responsible for the robots and for the projections, for visualization, and operating. So I'm speaking that we cannot get this done.
Okay, cool. Thank you for sharing this. We can feel it. Okay, Sebastian, what was your like project that in terms of business like was eye-opening for you?
Yeah, so yeah, maybe I also show something. Hold on.
Yeah.
I will also share my screen more. Wait, where's that? Is it just a share button? Oh, okay. I can just do this.
Yep.
I think. Do you see that image?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So this is like a pretty early invisible playground project, I would say. And actually, this is eye-opening because it's super unusual for the work that I normally do. So this is at a festival in Holland, I think around 2010 or something like that, or 2011, I don't remember. This is 200 festival visitors at a festival that's devoted to landscape art or landscape-based performances. So it's all about music and shows and stuff like that. And they had invited us to do like a game, whatever we want, basically. But the interesting part of this commission was that they just said, yeah, like how it works at this festival is that everyone buys a ticket and then you get to keep the the ticket cost. So this is like totally different from other projects where I'd worked before with cultural funding, where you sort of put up a budget for what you want to do. You try to like raise the funds that you need, and you sort of everything through setting up some sort of realistic budget. And in this case, we basically took this as a challenge and said, okay, is it possible to fund a production through ticket, like of an urban game, basically in the countryside here through ticket costs? And this was quite interesting because it basically forced us to make a game for the maximum amount of people that we could manage and do it as many times as possible. So, so we did like 10 runs with 200 people. So that was 2,000 people, all paying like 20 euros or something like that, or for 15 euros or something. So that was then like, I don't know, like 15,000 euros budget or something like that, around that. And then we were, okay, so this is a number that we can work with. But the consequence of this decision was that you have to do 10 runs with 200 people, right? And that meant like really thinking deeply about how to train 200 people for this. We had like this very elaborate teaching system, needed a lot of manpower, but everyone in small groups that went through this training there. The story of the game was you sort of have to navigate a city that's being flooded. It's kind of a dystopian future, and we drew the city every day with chalk spray on the sand, and it was positioned in a way that it was actually flooded by the physical water throughout the game. And you're kind of fighting, 4 big families are fighting over happiness at the end of times. It's kind of the story. It doesn't really matter in this context. Basically, this was interesting because I think it helped me realize that raising the money through players paying is basically not an option for the work that I'm doing, right?
It's not.
No, because like, well, this is an example of where it worked, but this only worked because there's this huge festival which basically gives us the audience, right? Like the audience was delivered to the entrance of the game because they're going to this festival, which has been running for 30 years on this island, has a huge following. People camp there all the time. It's really great. It's nice. It's called Eurol Festival, so I recommend going. but like the only reason why we could fund this through tickets was that basically all the work was necessary in bringing the people to the entry point to this game in this mass. You know, this was taken away, right? So it wasn't even actually funded through the ticket prices. It was funded through ticket prices plus like all this huge setup of the festival all around to get people to come there. So this was also highly subsidized if you look at it from the thing. And even there we were like trying to make it work for players. So this was to me a moment of like acceptance that the type of kind of deep bodily chaotic site-specific one-time experiences that I was interested in that time are just not feasible economically, period. No one would like pay for it. To do it, it would mean like, it just doesn't work, I think. I think the only example that I really know where this sort of worked for a while would be the big zombie games that Simon and Slingshot did in the UK, but then they basically built this huge PR machine around that one experience and had to repeat again and again and again and again and again. So this is just one example, I think, that taught me how to, like, basically this problem of scaling up urban play experiences and the numbers that have to do with that. And then maybe just to show one, like, more recent project. How do I share my screen? Oh, here's I can, like, select the player. Oh, that's cool. So do you see this video thing?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so this is the project I just finished right now. This is a collaboration, totally different model, with an orchestra, like a very established classical music orchestra called Mahler Chamber Orchestra that's doing like very big tours with like Mozart piano concerts. And so they got money from the German federal government to do like innovative additional programming to their music, which is already incredibly expensive. So we've been working on this for a year, developing a technology that enables people to kind of step into the shoes of a classical musician. I just want to show it. Can you hear sound?
No.
Yeah, okay. Wait, I can hear it.
Yeah. I don't know if you can share the screen. And
yeah. Sound now?
Yeah.
Right.
What is happening?
Okay. So what's happening here, and I'll just close. How do I close it?
You can leave it. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. So what's happening here is that like we developed this special sound box with a tablet and a speaker, and they're all networked, and they play like a single voice from a classical music concert, and it's all synchronized, and they just like, it's like Guitar Hero for multiplayer Guitar Hero for classical music, right? So this is like classical music audience, which is going to a concert, and before that they're like, oh yeah, we're performing like the whole piece. At the end, it's like a whole orchestra of 37 people performing a whole Mozart piano concert, and of course it's insane the amount of work. Like it's like absolutely like completely disconnected budget from the from the audience, right? Mm-hmm. So this is like selling the project first to the orchestra. That's like, this is really cool, we want this to happen. Then selling that idea to the government, basically, which is like, which is really cool, we want this to happen. And then at the very end, then you also have to sell it to some players, but they're coming anyway because they're going to this classical music concert, which they love anyway, right?
Yeah.
So just the economics of it are like, your client is not the player. Like I care deeply about the player, right? But like from the economical angle, I have to think about the institutions. Like I have to think about making them happy to make the player happy and do the work I love. So it's very indirect. So that's the reality of most of my work nowadays.
Thank you so much. Yeah, Will. You also have another perspective on that, right? Like, so, like, was like one project that you can share that, yeah.
I mean, I guess I'll just sort of, like, I probably won't talk about like one individual project so much, just as a kind of like, because I think it's more useful to follow on from what Sebastian was saying in terms of the model, because So the model, I'll use Hidden City as an example, because it's a purely commercial company, no public funding. The model is automation, and essentially the design is a treasure hunt design. Now, you sign up on the website, you pay money and you started you pay per team, started quite cheap, we basically started making more expensive trails that were more immersive, tapping into appetite for immersive theatre, for escape rooms, that sort of thing, tapping into that market, going, okay, we actually take that sort of stuff out onto the street, people using their phones, and still, no app, just SMS, right? So now we have, I'll share the website in the chat, but we've got, everyone, we've got some of our trails are so our most expensive trail is Hunt for the Cheshire Cat, which is a Alice in Wonderland themed trail currently all the trails are in London and pretty central London as well. And that's £25 per player. So considering doesn't have to be staffed, you don't have actors. All you absolutely have to have is someone on customer support in case something goes seriously wrong. That will range from how urgent that is will range from actually the gateway breaking down, people not getting text messages, which does happen a bit, to people who are actually just stuck on a clue will sometimes just phone up and go, oh, it's not kind of obviously don't encourage people to do that because there's a hint function and everything like that to use. But that's sort of people, occasionally people will mention the price and say, oh, compared to this other thing I did, it was expensive and stuff like that. But the thing is, it's a 4 or 5 hour experience where there are without giving too much away, there are props, there are physical puzzles that you receive as well as the SMSs. So those are kept usually in pubs or cafes. So you might get an envelope from someone, and that will be and there's a narrator. So there's an immersive experience. There are branching narratives now as well. So it's simple branches, but there is some branching narratives. There is some agency that you have, which when people's expectations are sort of that they will be following something very linear, i.e. treasure hunt, and getting right or wrong, then it becomes, then it's sort of exciting for people to have they can also receive text messages from 2 different characters. And so you can kind of have you think you communicate with one character, you have incoming message from another character telling you something different, telling you what's really going on and that sort of stuff. I suppose the limitations of that are that game design wise, the model isn't changing very quickly because it poses a lot of risks to change anything up very quickly, in a very substantial way.
Can you say how often this runs? Can you say?
Yeah. And also how frequently we do it. Mm-hmm. That's the other thing. So basically, to make it viable, we have to. Doesn't necessarily have to be 7 days a week, but I suppose we do we would probably say it would have to be 6 days a week, and you'd have to basically be able to run it on Saturdays and Sundays, definitely. If you couldn't run it on either a Saturday or Sunday, you just wouldn't do it. You find another way of working it out. And that when it's available is because it's automated. When it's available is entirely dependent on when the venues are available. So there's a lot of work that goes into building each one. So that's where there's a lot of upfront cost, and so that's always the trouble with something like this is how do you actually pay everyone to build this thing over usually about 6 months or something like that, sometimes longer. In theory, if you did like a simpler version, like some of the earlier ones we did, you could do it faster, but that's sort of not, it seems like that product isn't as appealing to people. So the things that sell well are things that are using existing IPs that people are very familiar with, which are out of copyright. So I mean, we would use copyright IPs if that was sufficiently useful in the future or whatever potentially. But at the moment, we just use things that are out of copyright. So for example, Humpty the Cheshire Cat is based on Alice in Wonderland. We've got a Sherlock Holmes based one called Moriarty's Game. Again, sort of out of copyright, but like very familiar. We've done a fairy tale one called The Enchanting Mirror. We tried one which was like it was using Norse legends and that sort of stuff, which was really cool. So like a really cool area, but because it's like people don't know, people aren't familiar with that world, with that IP, they don't really engage, and it doesn't sell as well. So like the ones that people are like, oh yeah, fairy tales, like these sorts of things, they're like, you could say they're overdone, but they sell, right? Yeah. And
so William, do you think that there is a parallel between having IPs, which is intellectual properties that they have already an audience, and the thing that Sebastian was saying before, that he was like able to manage like to create games that were sustainable when an audience was delivered to them?
Yeah, I think. Well, actually, I mean, I think that the zombie 2.8 hours later that Sebastian mentioned is a good example as well. Like I remember something that Simon Johnson used to say a lot, who co-run Slingshot, was that only change one thing at a time. Only introduce one radical element at a time. Like if you're asking people to do something, even relatively simple, like Hidden City, like once people get how it works, it's like this is like one of the simplest versions of an urban game you can imagine, right? It's just text messages to your phone. So even that can be confusing to mass audiences, right? So the familiarity of being like, oh, what is this? Oh, okay, I know what the Cheshire Cat is. I know what Alice in Wonderland is. I know what Sherlock Holmes is. That's like, people like it. People get, just like in the zombie game, people get dressed up. They do it for parties, and they're like, as soon as you have to explain multiple things to your friends, there's like the first follower thing of like, people are just going to be like, if there are too many things, oh, it's this thing, and it's like based on some Norse legends, and also it will be on your phone, and all this sort of thing. People are just like, well, no. Yeah. So I think there's that. You need that. You need some kind of familiarity, and it's a difficult balance, because I mean, at times, I'm sick of zombie games, and I'm sick of Alice in Wonderland, and and all these sorts of things at times, because they are done so often. But at the same time, they do work. I actually do work really much. Yeah.
What was this? So you say that like I can imagine that like as you said, there is a lot of like upfront cost. So just to understand, upfront costs are the costs that you have before selling your first ticket. And so how was like the history of Hidden City? Like they started like with small project, building up their audience, and then they managed like to get an IP, and then etc. Like,
well, so with the IPs, they're IPs that are out of copyright, so you don't have to pay anything for them.
Yeah, exactly. You can have this kind of IP.
So initially, if the early Hidden City games, which a lot of which were created before I started working with them, they were very more straightforward. There was no narrator or anything like that. You were just receiving messages. So it was much more like a treasure hunt that you might like make for your mates or something like that. But kind of like obviously a step up, to the point where you could sort of charge people. But at that, I think back then it was like we were charging people £20 per team, and we didn't have any limit on team numbers. So like it was pretty cheap for people to do. People do it in large groups. You know, you stop off in some pubs along the way. You know, they sort of do it like, you know, take their time doing it. Like some people be super competitive about it. But yeah, once there was a bulk of like existing things, and you kind of had some followers. But actually, to be honest, like with these new games and stuff, a lot of people are first-time buyers. So
okay.
A lot of new people, and in terms of reaching those people, it's a lot of that is through social media, and that's it's like Facebook particularly. It's like very sort of good for our demographic. It's you know, because you can tag people and that sort of stuff. Like people are asked to get their like groups together and that sort of stuff. So that's that's been a big element to it. But also obviously because I think anyone can go on the website and they can see like, oh, there are all these things they've already done. There's like, you know, this isn't their first rodeo.
Reliability. There is reliability on the deliver. So, and also the tech probably on the side was like already strong when you started like having like this new adventure, right?
Yeah. So that's another thing.
Already strong, like to a level that is like
robust. Really.
Yeah,
that's the key thing, because again, the tech isn't complicated, and you know, but it has to be robust. For example, like so some of the work I do with Coney, and Coney is a theatre company in the UK, but also like an agency of play. They make adventures out in the real world as well as in theatres. And Coney is a national portfolio organisation, which means an organisation that is regularly funded by the Arts Council in the UK.
Yeah.
So they're not a profit-making organisation, basically. So I made a game with Tassel Stevens, who runs Coney, called Adventure One, and that used a platform that had been built by a hobbyist who is like an amazing technologist, and like, you know, no way that like Coney would have been able to afford him to like actually to pay him this rate. So he did it for free. But what that meant was he had created something with a lot of really complicated and amazing functionality, but it wasn't sufficiently robust. So even for like to run something with like 10 people, we would find that like the server would crash sometimes. Like it would be fine. It would be like, it would run for a few days totally fine, and then it would just crash for everyone. And obviously that couldn't work for Hidden City. So Hidden City has refined the hunt engine that we use for the game engine, essentially. Like over time, both the internal engine itself and also all the providers that we use, like testing out providers, giving feedback to providers over and over and over again, being like, this didn't work. And it's like, you know, that's years and years of doing that to make it as robust as possible so that you can send hundreds of people through over a weekend and it works.
Yeah.
You know? Because obviously, if people don't get a text message for half an hour and literally don't get text messages, they're going to want a refund. You know?
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Thanks for sharing this. I think like with this first round, it emerged to me again one like way to understand different ways like to fund these kind of activities, which I started sharing like in the platform. I think like there is like one way that is, and there is also a topic about audience development, which I think could be like another webinar that we can organize in the future. But I think like there is like with the story from Michał and also Sebastian, there is like this idea of like mostly with Michał. So basically, you apply for grants and you try to find a way to like apply for a grant that is not exactly maybe written for you, but you manage like to enter this like niche, and then you organize like a game. And then basically you are responsible for the entire budget. And so usually that if you're not experienced, it means like over design over delivery, and you don't get the money for your hours and your work. And I think like everyone at the beginning has like stepped on this and probably like make this mistake, but then you get better and better. Another like way to survive that is probably like just to simplify that is like what Sebastian was saying. Basically, I'm an artist, I make games. If you are like an organization that you want me, you can like hire me as a consultant, and then like basically you are my clients. So I will call this like a B2B, which is like basically business to business model. And so basically your clients are not like the final audience, but is like you have to convince your clients, like, which is an institution. And then there is also the last way, which is like B2C, so business to consumer, which is like the Will and Eden City model, which is basically you have to build your audience and you have to deliver to them something that is like innovative, but also like very simple, because like if you want like an audience, and very robust, because like if you want like people to have a very good experience from scratch, basically you need like to have a word that is known from them, a technology that is like not so drastic and not so scary, and also an adventure that is already in their like library of experiences, I would say. So it's nothing like something that is like completely off, but which is something that also like, for example, I remember interviewing Randy Viner, which was the producer of Sleep No More here in New York, and is like one of the most known immersive theater experience. And he told me that you need to have words that people can bring inside the work that you are building. So everyone can bring their own word into your work. So these like are different models. I think that, for example, the grant model, it works a lot in Europe. For example, here in the US is not like the way to do stuff. Probably building an audience and is a way that here works better. My next question for you will be like, if you have to look at your, and we are getting late, so it's already noon. So like, sorry for keeping you here, but I think like it's really interesting, the conversation. So maybe these are like the next question. Then we're gonna look on some question from the audience. Is like, if you look, and maybe we can do this quickly. If you look at like your time and how is the money coming in from like your monthly, let's say, revenue, how is that split? So like if it's like where is money coming from, and how, like, I think there are two aspects of that. Where is the money coming from, and also how is your time splitted? Because maybe you sometimes you have like project that you just put the time on it, but they're not paid, but then they have other things that are really well paid, and you put like just a small amount of time on that. Maybe we can do the reverse. So Michał, you're not the first to answer that. Or maybe we can start with Sebastian. Yeah, you can go.
Okay, I can't hide in the middle anymore.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I guess like for me, what's like interesting is that there's zero regularity in the income streams. So there's absolutely no regular income. There's just like kind of amounts of money at random times. so there needs to be enough reserve to survive.
Pipeline and reserve.
Sure.
Yeah.
Like I'm blessed that I live and work in a quite rich region and in a country that spends a lot of money on culture. So that's like the reason why I can do this. Clearly, is that, and I think I usually have like 2 or 3 big projects running in different stages of development that have like maybe like 1-year cycles right now. That's kind of right now for me that provide kind of a planning horizon, I would say. So I know what I'm going to be doing until about like 1 year from now, like also where the money is coming from, and then plus like a bunch of small stuff, like small workshops or teaching or like talks or like many things that don't take up a lot of preparation, but that just kind of drip. But It's all super random, it's like there's no And so it really just month.
When did you start to have like this pipeline of like this being this long? So knowing what you are going to do in 1 year. When this started and how did you build that? If you have like
so we had kind of like a high intensity phase with Invisible Playground when we were working really as a collective and doing really an insane amount of projects. That was around 2012, 13, 14, I would say. That's when planning became really, really important, and also kind of all the financial aspects that come with working in different overlapping constellations, where it gets just really tricky to organize the money flows and also like to figure out a fair way to pay. So for a while we had different models also of like actually yearly, like back in Invisible Playground, that time we always wanted to write a book about this, because like we changed the payment model each year. so we had of course, like as game designers, like you iterate, right? So you have like, okay, so 1 year we paid everything by the hour. and then the next year it was like, yeah, this is shit. We're paying like all the projects have separate budgets and everyone is responsible only for their projects. And then and then we had like mixed models where there was kind of baseline hourly pay plus like project bonuses. And in the end, and where we ended up was like total independence as a network, like, because it's like, nothing was possible to sustain, right? Like these sort of complicated, innovative models are really, really, really hard. Yeah. Like I don't regret doing that because it was really, really valuable experience. But like my model right now is really as a freelancer in a network that's what sustains me, is like the network of institutions with all kinds of different people. Yeah. And that took now, like, I think like the only, as an individual, that my planning horizon is like a year or more is only like the last 2 or 3 years, I would say. So it took, like almost 10 years to get to that point.
Okay, thanks. Michał.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as for me, I would divide my urban gaming period to the 2 periods, Polish and Russian, because basically I started in 2008 in Poland, and then I moved to Russia in 2013, and it kind of started again, yes? But back then, when I was starting in 2008, I was a student, or I was ending studies. I was living with my parents, and so I was making money out of games slowly, and to 2012, 2013, it was quite sufficient amount of money, but still not good amount of money.
Not enough.
And in 2008 and 2013, I started to make some games in Russia, and now it's 2019, and I can say that only now I am starting to making some money out of games in Russia.
Okay.
Not only because I did many games for free, but I also was in different situation. I was living. I have my family, and I have different home budget. So I was forced to do other things that were not games.
Sure.
So what were my streams of income back then in 2012, 2013? I think that will be interesting. So we were basically getting funds for our games from 3 sources. First was different grant competitions that we participated in. Grant competitions, I mean, we invented a project, we wrote this project, we wrote budget for this, and we applied for funds for different competitions. They were like Ministry of Culture or City Council, or some national programs or some European programs. So that was the first group. Second group was the games that were ordered from us by cultural institutions like museums, like galleries, university, or so on. And third group was business to business deals from commercial companies. And I would say that it was 16% out of these grants that we invented and we did in the way that we wanted. 30% was ordered from cultural institution, and business to business was, I think, the 10% of our income. But those business to business deals, they were often requiring a lot of time because business clients were trying more from us.
Yeah.
But also with this first group, with these projects that we applied for the grants from Ministry of Culture, for example, the problem with this was back then, and I think it's still in Poland, that there is some thought in the Ministry of Culture that you should not pay too much for the people that are doing culture because it's not so important. It's not an industry or something. So basically, if in your budget you write too much money for the people, just for concepts, for creative work, you don't get this money. And so that was the problem that we met. And we also done some different creative tricks here, like we wrote that we need money for something that they know that it's costs much, like
technology is always good.
Technology, yes, like this.
Yeah.
So these were tricks that we were making, and also the mistake that we are doing often in these projects, where like in the first project I was speaking about, that we were inventing something new, something spectacular, something that we liked very much, but actually to make it work in the way that we invented, we should ask for a big amount of money and not the money that they can afford.
Yeah.
So basically like this.
I have a follow-up question on this. You brought to Poland also lately one format, right, which is the Encounter.
Yeah.
And the Encounter is a game that maybe you can explain a little about the Encounter, but I think it's a good parallel to the intellectual property that we were talking before. So IP, so things that are already successful and that you can like brought basically to Poland, and you started like selling that to a new audience, basically. So how was that experiment? So basically it's a B2C model. So you are like basically selling to your customer. So how was that experiment?
Yes, it was very nice experiment in terms of the audience we have and their experience from this project. So really we got a huge amount of fans of Encounter in Poland. And yes, so to say, what is Encounter? Encounter is basically it's a software for making games, and these are the network of games which are based in Russia and former Soviet countries. And they are usually played at night. They are usually played with the cars. Yes, Sebastian is laughing. They are usually kind of dangerous, kind of not so legal. So you are visiting some abandoned places, some not so safe places. So these are kind of rough, dirty Russian games. What Encounter, I think it's difficult to speak about Encounter in terms of business, because they are financed by the community, by the players. So you basically pay some money to enter the game. But how it works is that the money that you receive, they cover the organization costs.
Production cost, yeah.
Production costs, yes. And you don't have much left. And also what's interesting here, the common practice is that some part of this money, most often it's the half of the money, is granted for a prize. So the winner of the encounter just gets this money. Interesting as well. But in terms of business, it's not so sustainable.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Will, so you're like monthly income, how is divided if there is something that is more like revenue and etc.?
So yeah, I mean, I'm a freelancer, but I do about 75% of my work at Hidden City probably, and then that sort of gives me still time to work on other projects. So like this week, for example, I'm not working on Hidden City, I'm working on other things. The Hidden City, so yeah, in terms of my income, it's more or less that, like, so I would generally say like 75% Hidden City, 25% other things, although there are also times when you're applying for grants and that sort of thing, when you're having to spend the time and hope that you're going to get the money, and obviously you're not getting paid to do the applications. And in terms of where Hidden City's income comes from, that's it's directly from players. I suppose like one of the things that makes that is an advantage as sort of startup, is, you know, or small business like Hidden City, is that you're not having to provide the product straight away. So you can put tickets on sale a few months in advance usually, and people pay for it, but they're not necessarily going to actually play the game the next day. Like I'd say on average, people do play within the week, within a week or two of booking, but there will still be people, and sometimes quite large bookings as well, for like, you know, sort of bachelorette parties, like birthdays and that sort of stuff, like, you know, where people really want to plan in advance, or like office parties and that sort of stuff. Around Christmas, people really want to plan in advance, right? So then you can get this like stream of revenue, which is where you're not actually having to provide any of the materials. So, for example, like there are consumable materials that we'll provide on the trails, but the point of someone actually using that and us needing to provide that is different to the point at which they purchase. So that's a useful thing. It's going back to the thing about the upfront costs of building a new trail. People aren't buying 6 months in advance, right? So there's there's that as well. There are also partnerships, so like media partnerships, for example. So Time Out, which I imagine most people know because it's all over the world now.
It's a magazine, right? Like
the magazine, yeah. So I mean, I don't know where it originally started, but it's been in London for a very long time, and selling through Time Out and being featured on their site was really useful. I think partly with like just to say about Time Out, that like what's useful about a website like that is that it's associated with a magazine, and that used to be a magazine that had a lot of reviews, and that their cultural reviews of things were quite important, and it used to have to pay for the magazine. Now they're selling lots of stuff, and they have a lot of partnerships, like in City, with lots of others, and it's a free magazine, it's a free website, and it's like, it's sort of shifted, but in people's minds, it's like this seal of approval. You know, they trust the brand because it's been around for a long time. So
yeah, also keyword trust, right? Like what we always kind of come back to. Yeah, sorry.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's that thing of like people, like if people come from the Time Out website, they sometimes think they're buying something from Time Out. Like they think like they're actually just being redirected to our website, right? But it's that thing of like, oh yeah, but it's Time Out though. It's got that seal, that seal of approval of something that's been around for a very long time.
Okay, cool. So maybe right now, if like our audience has like question, please write them on the chat. And in the meanwhile, if you have questions for each other, after this discussion between each other, like we can have a discussion while we collect like questions from the audience. Yeah,
I want to know more about these like dangerous games. I think when you were describing them, Michał, I thought you were saying that it was an established thing, so you got quite a lot of money to put it on, but then from the model you described, it was like an under the radar, semi-legal sort of thing. So I was just curious about how that worked, because I mean, here you couldn't get a bunch of money from the Arts Council to do something that wasn't legal.
Well, it's, you know, in Russia, it's, how to say, a lot of things in Russia are not so legal.
Okay.
So
we are reinforcing a stereotype here. I am just like
sorry. No, I would not say it's illegal. It's rather off the radar. It's some gray zone.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, you just collect money from the people and you don't show it anywhere. So it works like this. Yes.
So like you basically tap into community that are already existing, and you promote the game inside those communities.
Yes, because Encounter is a big network that people are already connected to, and they are expecting games there. So we can advertise your game and just get the people from the site.
So it reminds me also a little bit of the Nordic LARP scene, where there's also a very interesting community-based business model where players actually fund very elaborate productions and pay a lot of money to join stuff and go places. Mm-hmm. It's maybe also to answer one of the questions here in the chat. It's also like one of the areas where there's super interesting work on the play. It's like the whole Scandinavian live action role-playing scene. Like they've, over the last 20 years, developed their own culture, basically, with their own festivals, their own conferences, their own kind of strategies of events where you enact really, really challenging, interesting scenarios. And they've developed a business model for it, which is completely player funded. And it's only now starting to get in touch with other cultural institutions. But this is quite new for the LARP scene, you know, to get like outside money.
Yeah. So yeah, this is interesting. And again, we go back like to the idea of like basically create your own community, and then which is usually a community of peers. Is not like sometimes like is not a community of like consumers.
Right.
Usually is more like a community that is made of people that loves what you're doing, that are doing themselves stuff, and that maybe are like 2 years younger than you in terms of experience, but they are coming, and this is again audience development. So I think this is a very interesting topic that we can cover in another webinar. There is another question, which is, what is the longest time a participant has to commit if they play any of your games? And how willing are people to come back and play again? Thank you, Michał Lobzanitze, to asking that. So like in terms of, which is connected with pricing usually, right? So how is like the price for your experience, and is that related to the time the people are playing? And also like the question which Will was also asking before, like contingently, is like how many people pay twice for like they returned customers, or like or also like not customer but also like institution that got one product that they got others. Feel free to jump in on that.
I think that, so in terms of Hidden City, the experience is usually 3-4 hours. Could be less if you're like a super speedy team. You could do it in 2 hours. There are breaks along the way, so stop the timer for the breaks. Some people take ages and ages, and they're basically just getting wasted in the pubs along the way, or stopping and shopping and that sort of stuff. In terms of like that's, I wouldn't say there's always a correlation, and again, it depends on what the model is as well. So yes, Hidden City does tend to charge more for longer games with more clues and more stops, but not hugely so. But then similarly, Adventure 1, which I mentioned before, which was something that we made with Coney, using their own model. Now that was very cheap to play. It was fairly cheap to run, but partly the reason it was cheap to run is because Coney has salaried staff, right?
Yeah.
So and there's also the what also becomes problematized is what we mean by play, like in this context of like there's a light level of play where you're interacting with the world maybe, but in a very light way. So receiving emails, receiving like maybe a tutorial level about like, which would, in something like Adventure 1, it would be like, oh, if my phone rings from this number, it's someone calling about the game, and it will be like, there's no point in talking back to them because it's an MP3, and you sort of learn to suspend that disbelief. So basically it meant that people were having to book like about, I think like 3 days. I think maybe we said a week, but it was really 3 days. We could push people in for 3 days, just so that there was enough time for them to be able to respond to certain questions over email, and that really fed into the game itself. But the game itself would only last a couple of hours.
Okay. Yeah. Michał or Sebastian, how do you answer to that? Like in terms of like, also like how the audience, if the audience like it's returning or
So maybe I can there's a couple of projects, kind of like a small, like it's its own form to me, like that are this kind of crazy ambitious multi-week games, I guess. Like I did a few of those. They were always like insanely kind of, I don't know, everyone worked way too much on these, kind of it's coming from also this a little bit tradition of like also back then alternate reality games where basically there's a team like constantly reacting to what players are doing, and you keep this up as long as you don't like have a nervous breakdown basically. So that was like 3 or 4 weeks was kind of the longest. Like I did like maybe three of those things. And there actually what was interesting was, I was always interested in people kind of being able to blend it. So there has to be gaps, there has to be kind of the breaks in it, but then like weird surprising places, like a constant flow of, kind of maybe a big narrative arc, and then many, many small little interactions that are very lightweight, and then some big events. So to me, that's kind of like, that's like really for the crazy ones. Like you can do that like a few times in your life, I think, right? Where you have like, it's also like in a way it's like this it's almost like a Wagner opera idea, right? Where you say like, of course we're going to have a big event, and we're going to have small events, and we're going to have an online layer, and we're going to have an app, and we're going to have clues in the city, and we're going to, it's crazy. It's totally crazy. It's super fun to do. It's like, I would definitely recommend doing that if you want like you always learn like tons and tons of stuff, but I think like from an economic perspective, I don't know.
It's completely unsustainable.
It works like in communities, and it works like you form a temporary community in it, and that's wonderful. And I still like meet people sometimes who participated in that stuff, and they're saying like, yeah, like changed my life and stuff. But that's like, it changes like everyone's life also, like on the other side.
So there are also other questions that are coming. Maybe, Michał, do you want to answer?
So many questions. So many.
Yeah. Like there are questions that are interesting. Like for example, there is a question from Kate, which I think is really a question that we can discuss in the community because it's like is a very technical one that is really exciting and interesting. And are there any off-the-shelf tech, GPS-based taxing application available to the public that you guys are enjoying to working with? I think this could be like a question that we can post on the community. Then everybody can share that. I think also the question about how do you keep a community of players together and engage after an event or a game. So what is the follow-up? This is also something that Boaz asked, which is really interesting, and I think it could be part of a webinar about audience development. So maybe we can have, how do you engage an audience before, during, and after a game? And I think this is the question from Yorgos is really interesting. That could be our like last question that I'm gonna ask the three of you to ask, which is, how do you inspire trust to the institution or organization to reach out for funding? And it's a matter of brand, or like, did you offer something they need? And then this could be the question that was, what is your suggestion to someone that is like starting doing like urban games? So now that you have like 10, like 5-6 years of experience, how do you, so we did like a lot of missteps and we learned a lot. Oh my God, learning experience is amazing, but it's also very painful. So now that we got the pain, how can we like, what is your suggestion, the three of you, for like someone that is starting working with institution and looking for funding? Like, what is the right way to start? So maybe we can go like a round of that, and then we can close the webinar.
Okay, I think I can start here.
Yes, go Michał.
I was not starting for some time. So our way that we did it was, so firstly we wrote some project, we wrote some idea for the game, and started to look for some funds with this, but in this competition of grants, yes? So not in the way that you are just going to some institution, to some museum and tell them, let's make a game together. I didn't make any game, but I want to do this. But go to some institution that is already telling, hey, we are looking for these ideas, here are the rules, here is the budget that we have for this, and come and share your ideas. So I think it's the best way to start. And if you already have some projects like this in your portfolio, let's say, then you can go to institutions that are not really looking for urban games, but maybe you can inspire them and show them, we did it, we received a grant from some ministry, from some city council, do this, and you can do it. So I don't know how it works in Greece, how it works in other countries, but in Poland, the best way to start is just to look for some competition of grants. It's not always easy to get this money, but it's definitely possible. It's not some rocket science to do this.
Okay, thank you. William, you want to go next?
Okay, yeah, so like learning from experience. So things like when you, I think as an unknown quantity, particularly like if you as an artist or as a maker are not known to people, and also they don't really know that much about the format that you're working in, it's like all this uncertainty. So there's gonna, you're really up against it in that case. So I think to have made something, to have a thing that you've made on your own DIY, like, and to have made it well, really, really helps, because then you can say to someone like, oh yeah, here's this thing I did. And then either, I think, like, if this is the type of thing that you can actually make still playable, like, then that's great, because then you can say to someone, oh, like, here's the thing I've done. If they're interested in theory, in the general world of urban games, then you can say, oh, well, you can play this, right? And if it's the type of thing that was a one-off event and it's not a continuous thing, then just document it really well. And don't forget to document it, because I found for ages, I was just like making these things and not documenting anything. And then I was having to explain what it was to people. And it was so hard, and they just thought I was crazy, you know? And it's like, actually pretty cool. Like, people had a good time doing this, but there was no evidence of it. So like, it's so useful to get someone to document it, like get a mate to do it.
Yeah.
Pay someone if you need to, like, because that way you can stick on a website and it looks legit, and people are like, oh, that looks cool. I'd like to do that. That sounds cool.
Yeah, I think for us, like, I'm talking about Urban Games Factory. For us, was like having like very talented photographers. Was like, I don't know how we had the idea, but like we are still using pictures that are 10 years old, and they're like perfect to explain what we are doing. Yes, Sebastian, your final remarks and suggestion for someone that is starting.
Right. So like a lot of stuff has like already been said. Maybe just to add some other strategies. Like I think one strategy would be also to go into existing projects. Like to not, like, it's good to do your own stuff and to build a body of work that you can show. But looking back, I can, if I try to see like where, like what relationships I profited off of, it was relationships coming from other projects that I didn't lead that really, really helped me build connections of trust to people who then later on supported my work. So really treat it as kind of a network building, but also like a really like a, I mean, this sounds so cold, right? But it's also like these relationships are warm relationships with these people in this field, right? Like this is really, 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 that's also really nice, you know, to just kind of get to know a lot of people, get to know other people's work, you know, ask if there's stuff that you can help with, volunteer at events, and then kind of get ideas about like doing your own stuff slowly. Like, and this is like on a community side, but on the other side is also in the institutions, like they also consist of people. Right.
Yes.
And like they have to like not only know your work, but they have to know and trust you. Right. And you have to be able to like sit down with people and kind of, it's also this question of like, is it a matter of your brand and things or that you offer them something that they need? That you actually do offer them like something they need when you sit down with them and like also take on risk, right? And like calm them down and like be the person that says like, yeah, I'm going to take care of your fears. It's almost like it's very psychological also. I think that's something really weird also, that you learn that institutions they're not stable, right? Like they're also like, they consist of people that are like also concerned about their jobs or concerned about the future of their work or their relevance, you know. And if you can find an answer to that, like how can you be still relevant? Like I can help you be you know, stay relevant. So it's all about trust and kind of finding ways that are where you're actually needed, and it's not a lie. I think they really need this kind of work. I mean, to me it's the truth also.
That's good. Thanks for sharing this. Yes, that's the final question, Marie-Claire. Thank you. Yes, we got like we are an all-male panel. We know that. And we are sorry about that. It was like, I think, my fault. Definitely, I will take like the responsibility for that. We are organizing a panel about festival, and it's gonna be like more gender diverse, and also so like we're trying to involve people that are already on the platform mostly. So let's also spread the words out so we can have like more people interacting with that. And yeah, so yeah, we were aware of that, and with Sebastian, where we said, oh damn, we are falling also in the all mail panel. So yeah, sorry about that. And that's it, I think, for now. So so thanks again, Sebastian, Michał, and William, for being with us. Again, yeah, thank you. And we're going to share the video on the platform, and so we can keep continuing asking each other questions and continue this conversation. And thank you for participating. It was like 17 participants, 18 participants at some point, also more. Thank you for the question, and it was really, really, really good. And yeah, I hope to see you there. Remember, there is an open call that is open, and it's gonna last until the 31 of May. So if you're interested on this, apply. There are 3 branches can apply. There is the Amsterdam branch, which is based on Amsterdam, Athens branch, and also like the Nomad branch. There is the one that we are, with the traders, we are like coordinating. So thank you again for your time, and have a good day. Thanks again, panel, and see you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah,
bye. Bye bye.
bye.